You wake up, and something feels off. The sun still rises, the streets still hum, people still smile, but none of it reaches you. There's a silence behind your eyes, a hollow ache in your chest, like you're walking through a world that was once yours, and now feels borrowed. No one sees it. You laugh at the right times, say you're fine, keep moving. But inside it's like a thread has snapped, the one that tied you to yourself. You try to name it. Burnout, loneliness, maybe you're just tired. But deep down, a quieter truth whispers, this isn't who I am. And that's the wound no one talks about. The pain of drifting, not from people, not from goals, but from the core of who you were before the world told you to be someone else. There was a time you felt things deeply, a time your eyes lit up just by being alive, before you learned how to dim your light to not blind others, before you traded honesty for likability, before you became the version of yourself that was easier to love. Now, you look around and everything seems strange. Success tastes empty. Relationships feel distant. Even joy feels suspicious, like a language you've forgotten how to speak, and no one can tell, because the mask fits too well, because the world rewards the one you pretend to be, because slowing down feels like failure. But what if this numbness isn't your end, but your turning point? What if the confusion, the sadness, the weight you carry isn't a breakdown, but a wake-up call? A sacred moment when life itself whispers, you've wandered too far, come back. So I ask you, not with pressure, but with presence, when was the last time you felt like yourself? And if you close your eyes now, can you still hear them? The echoes of who you were, before the noise, before the roles, before the world taught you to forget. Because maybe everything that feels wrong right now isn't here to punish you. It's here to remind you that the world only starts making sense when you return to the place you stopped being you. It begins slowly, not with a fall, but with a drift. You don't wake up one day and decide to become someone you're not. It happens in pieces, in whispers, in little bargains with the world. You learn when to stay quiet, when to laugh even if it hurts, when to nod, to agree, to disappear just enough to be loved, or at least not abandoned. That's how it starts. Not as a lie, but as survival. Not as betrayal, but as adaptation. And slowly, you begin to wear a mask. At first, it's just for work, then for friends, then for love, then for safety. Until one day you look in the mirror and you can't remember the last time you saw your own eyes. You've become a performer in your own life, smiling in the photos, saying the right things, making everyone comfortable, except yourself. It's a silent theater, and you've been cast in a role that brings applause but steals your breath. The most dangerous prisons are made of glass. You can see through them. They let in the light. But you can't step outside, because if you do, people might see the real you, and you're not sure they'd stay. So you keep the mask. You keep the peace. You keep the version of yourself that others approve of, even if it costs you everything real. Because here's the truth you never told anyone. You're afraid to be fully seen, not because you're weak, but because you've spent so long shaping yourself around what others needed. You forgot what you needed. You forgot how to want, how to rest, how to say no, how to be soft without shame, how to exist without performing. And now the world feels like a blur, not because the world changed, but because you did. You became a stranger in your own story. You ask, why don't I feel alive anymore? But the answer isn't out there. It's buried beneath the masks, in the quiet voice you've been silencing for years. Can you hear it? That faint, aching truth inside you. I miss myself. That's not weakness. That's your soul knocking, not to shame you, but to bring you home. You were never meant to be pleasing. You were meant to be real. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. So ask yourself gently, who did you have to become to be loved? And who did you bury along the way? Because self-denial isn't peace, it's exile. And the cost of belonging to everyone is that you stop belonging to yourself. But maybe, just maybe, it's not too late. Maybe the mask is cracking, not because you're falling apart, but because something deeper is trying to breathe again. Not a better version of you, not a stronger, smarter, more together version. Just you, unfiltered, unhidden, unapologetic. The one who used to feel, the one who used to dream, the one who didn't measure their worth by how others reacted. So I ask you, softly, fiercely, what would happen if you stopped performing? Not all at once, just for a moment. What would happen if you let yourself be fully, wildly, imperfectly seen? Would the world collapse? Or would it finally begin to make sense? You've been surviving behind glass. Now it's time to breathe beyond it. Because life, your real life, doesn't begin when the world approves of who you are. It begins the moment you do. If you could write a letter to yourself on the day you started drifting away, what would you say? Write it like no one will judge you. Like for the first time you're being truly seen. No mask, no filter, just you. Pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hums, low and constant, like background noise you've learned to live with. The kind of ache you don't talk about. Because it doesn't bleed, but it bruises. Because it doesn't break you in public. It shapes you in silence. You carry it everywhere. In the tension in your shoulders. In the way you hesitate before speaking your truth. In the way your smile flickers when no one's watching. You've adapted so well to pain, you forgot it wasn't normal. You built routines around emptiness. You created a life that functions, but doesn't feel. And maybe no one told you this, but pain is not just something that happens to you. It's something that remakes you. The disappointments, the betrayals, the nights you felt invisible, they didn't just hurt. They rewired how you see yourself, how you trust, how you receive love. There are wounds you never gave language to, moments where you learned to stay small, to not ask, to not need, to not want too much. Because every time you did, something or someone made you feel like you were too much. So you shrank. You silenced the part of you that still believed in joy, in connection, in being fully met. But here's the quiet truth that Buddhist wisdom teaches. Suffering isn't punishment. It's a path. In every ache, there's a message. In every tear, a teacher. Not to shame you, not to break you, but to bring you back. Because pain is not the enemy. Numbness is. And when you start to feel again, even sorrow, even confusion, it means something sacred is waking up. You weren't meant to live half alive. You weren't meant to float through days that blur together. There is a fire inside you, not the kind that burns, but the kind that lights the way home. Maybe the reason you feel so lost is because you've been taught to run from pain, when all this time, pain has been trying to guide you. Every heartbreak you endured left a crack wide enough for light to get in. Every time you were rejected was proof that your truth was still intact. Every time you were ignored, your soul whispered, I still see you. You are not broken. You are bruised. You are not failing. You are feeling. And that is proof you are still alive. So let yourself feel, fully, wildly, without apology. Cry when you need to. Get angry when it rises. Speak what's been held back. Because the longer you silence your pain, the louder it screams in the background of your life. And here's something no one tells you. Healing doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it feels worse before it feels better. But every step you take through that darkness is a return to your own light. So stop asking if you're too emotional. Stop wondering if you're too sensitive. You're not. You're just someone who hasn't given up on feeling. And in a world numbed by distraction and performance, that makes you brave. Let your scars be soft. Let your tears be sacred. Let your story be unfinished. Because this ache you carry, might be the very thing that brings you home. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize you're tired. But not the kind of tired that sleep can fix. You're tired of holding on, tired of pretending, tired of carrying a version of yourself that no longer fits your soul. And that's when the idea of letting go begins to whisper. Not as a collapse, not as surrender to defeat, but as a return to something real. Letting go is not the end, it's the unbinding. The moment you stop gripping so tightly to the person you thought you had to be, so the truth of who you are can finally breathe. But it's terrifying, isn't it? To loosen the reins, to stop performing, to risk being misunderstood, unseen, unloved, just by being yourself. You've built a whole life around being needed, being good, being everything for everyone. And now, to choose yourself feels selfish, reckless, even cruel. But it's not. It's sacred. Because letting go isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's stepping out of the costume. It's walking away from the role. It's whispering to yourself in the mirror, I miss you. Come back. The truth is, you were never meant to carry this much, to constantly shape-shift to keep others comfortable, to sacrifice your voice just to be included, to chase approval like it was love. You were meant to flow with life, to move like water, soft, powerful, free. But somewhere along the way you became stone, rigid, guarded, stuck, and now your soul is cracking. Not because you're breaking, but because something softer, truer, freer is trying to get out. Letting go is how you make room for it. Let go of the idea that you need to be perfect to be loved. Let go of the story that your worth depends on productivity. Let go of the pressure to always know, always smile, always be okay. What if freedom is not found in doing more, but in being less? Less polished, less planned, less filtered. Imagine walking through life barefoot, feeling the earth, not the expectations. Imagine laughing without checking if it's too loud, resting without guilt, saying no without explanation, existing without apology. That's not weakness, that's alignment. Because the real you, the one underneath all the striving, is not lost. She's waiting. He's still there, quiet, patient, watching for the moment you finally loosen the grip. And when you do, when you stop trying to be what they want and start becoming who you are, life shifts. The air feels different. The noise fades. And for the first time in a long time, you can breathe without holding your breath. It's strange how it works. The more you let go of needing to be understood, the more you understand yourself. The less you try to be loved by everyone, the more love you feel. Real, raw, unshakable. Because the paradox is true. The moment you stop chasing acceptance, you start attracting it. Not by force, not by effort, but by truth. By showing up as you, unedited, unafraid, unfinished. So today, maybe you don't need to fix yourself. Maybe you just need to release yourself from the roles, from the noise, from the pressure to always be more. You are enough in your becoming. You are allowed to be soft and still be strong. You are allowed to let go, not to fall apart, but to fall into place. There comes a point where words no longer help, where explanations fall short, where even the search for answers begins to feel like noise. It's here, in this raw, wordless space, that healing begins. Not in understanding everything, not in fixing what broke, but in being with what is. You stop trying to decode your pain like a puzzle. You stop asking, why me? And instead, you begin to listen, not to the world, not to others, but to the silence you've spent so long avoiding. Because within that silence is the truth, not wrapped in certainty, but in presence. You start to realize that maybe the world didn't stop making sense because it's broken, but because you were trying to live in it while disconnected from yourself. And now, the only way forward is inward. Surrender is not weakness. It's the softest kind of strength. It's choosing to stop running, to stop negotiating with your truth, to sit in the middle of your storm, eyes open, heart bare. You stop needing life to be easy. You stop needing to be understood. You stop needing the pain to go away. Instead, you start asking, can I meet myself here? In the confusion, in the stillness, in the ruins of what you once believed had to stay. This is not giving up. It's giving in to reality, to what's real, to what hurts, to what heals. And slowly, the armor falls. You no longer need to protect the parts of you that were once too tender to touch. You start to see your sensitivity as strength, your mess as medicine, Your story is sacred, not in spite of its chaos, but because of it. The noise fades, the striving softens, and for the first time, you're not trying to escape your life. You're inhabiting it, fully, quietly, deeply, and in that stillness, something shifts. You feel the ground beneath you, not as a place to run from, but as a place to rest. You realize that nothing needs to be perfect for it to be beautiful, that you don't need to be healed to be whole, that the life you've been waiting for begins where you are. There's no final transformation, no magical moment where everything clicks, just this breath and the next, and the quiet, rebellious act of staying present, of being here fully with yourself. That's the healing. That's the return, not to who you used to be, but to who you were before you started hiding. So now I ask you, not to push, not to fix, but to pause. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if the ache you feel isn't a problem to solve, but a sign that you're waking up? What if the disconnection you felt from the world was simply the echo of the disconnection from yourself? And what if, just what if, you don't need to fight anymore? Maybe the only thing left to do now is to be still, to breathe, to feel, and to whisper to yourself, I'm here. I never truly left. Because maybe the world only begins to make sense again when you stop trying to fix it and start remembering who you are.